Blood and Briar. Chapter 8. Milk. Derek went through his guardians as often as socks, at twice the rate of his change in schools. For his guardians, they were no more wiser to the truth of Derek's childhood. One bedraggled social worker or another had no concept of his trauma, or any desire to know, passing the moody child to another ward when the boy became too inconvenient or at risk for potential violence. Another guardian, another home, another school, more brutes to practice their taunting on a young skeleton dressed in boy's skin, Derek's nerves since immune to whatever pain the world thought to inflict. There were many bullies. Like the bloody nails of stigmata, they sought to drive themselves under his skin one blow at a time. Time and time again, no matter the effort to provoke Derek into a fight, or to tears, or give him the beating he deserved, Derek faced them and their fists directly, without laying a fist on any number of these bullies in retaliation. Not one of these child beasts dared look into his eyes. Somewhere behind his eyes, down the long, lightless hallway from his retina to his brain, were the shadows of the men who killed his mother and father. The bullies who evaded Derek's gaze saw a kindred spirit in those mute, eyeless creatures who looked back into the hearts of evil, whom occupied Derek's dreams. "Are you dumb? Are you retarded? Did Mommy drop you on your head? Hey, you just gonna stare at me?" Everyone expected him to lash out at the jostling fists and antagonism. It had happened before, in other counties, in other schools. Other children turned savage by taunting, the drudgery of playground fights and lack of parental care. None of them were aware. He wouldn't tell them. To look into his eyes was to see a reflection of blood that never left his mind. No confession of pain to expose a weakness to the counselors, the social workers, the guardians, or the teachers. Weakness was death. Derek had become an expert on what death was, and vowed no weakness to it. During his senior year, a new counselor replaced the old man Derek had terrified into a heart attack. At least this was the reputation Derek had in the school. For how Derek had accomplished driving the man to grab his chest was a mystery no one sought to figure. The young man was possessed. When the yearbooks were issued, everyone cut Derek's picture out. The bullies lost track of their desire to bother Derek, the effort long since replaced with sports or girls. As with so many of these mandatory psychological experts, their expression of terror at Derek's silence, or retelling of dreams, brought them to treat him as a virus. Derek had gotten into enough trouble at scoffing at these counselors that he became a legal issue, marked as a danger to the public, a black mark on his future. Of course, Derek was convinced he had little future, but where he was headed, the alternative might be better. The later sessions were away from school, in a nondescript room in an anonymous building. It was a room painted blue, with white chairs and a green linoleum floor pockmarked from years of use. Warm light filled every corner, even under the plastic folding tables for refreshments. It was mostly coffee, tea, and donuts. The coffee was cheap. The donuts were dry. Derek was the first to arrive, bringing a quart carton of milk, a spoon, and bowl. As the others arrived in succession, they all looked at Derek, the eldest youth, as if he was a new counselor, a different face of the many they all had endured. He dutifully ignored them with his bowl and spoon. He chose the driest donuts, broke them up into the bowl, and heated the mess in a microwave at the coffee station. Everyone watched. Derek dropped into a seat and poured the milk over the dried donut crumble. Someone called out, "Hey, let me try that." Derek held the bowl out. As the kid took a bite, Derek rubbed his hands. "Don't know where I got the idea." "Never thought ever," the kid said, smacking his lips, handing the bowl back. "Apple fritters are best, nice and dry and covered in sugar." The counselor appeared, with a briefcase and posture, and attended to the broken children. They all faced the center, facing each other, facing the pain of each story. The next meeting, there were dried apple fritters, bowls and spoons, and a gallon of milk in the fridge. Before the counselor arrived, everyone had made their bowl and were busy eating. No one talked as to why each were in the room, Some were rich, some were poor. One had killed a man for a fix. Another had tried and failed to kill their stepfather. The stepfather eventually took care of that on his own. Some were brilliant and others not so clever. What abounded among these youths, and the young woman counseling them, was the fact they were all adopted, their birth parents dead while they were very young. For Jody, it was a plane crash over the Rocky Mountains. Justin lost his parents to a car crash. Black ice sent the car into oncoming traffic. The anguish of this story was that his grandmother told him, for weeks after, that mother and father were on a trip. When Justin found out, after so many lies, the effect was cataclysmic. Lawrence lost his father to cancer when he was 3. His mother was killed crossing a street while visiting her mother, who was dying of cancer. James' father murdered his mother, then shot himself. Brent was coming down off a week-long amphetamine frenzy and mistook his wife for a prostitute he owed money to. James was in school when the incident happened. When the police showed up at school looking for James, he thought the worst and hid in the cafeteria. Alice lost her parents in a boating accident. Mother fell overboard and father went in after her. Both drowned. There was talk of drink involved. Helen Ross, their counselor, lost her mother to a house fire. Her father committed suicide 2 years later, after months of being investigated for arson and murder. The investigation caused William Alberts to lose his job, his house, his savings, and his mind, and afterward declined into drink. After his death, evidence pointed to the official investigating the fire as the culprit, to cover up an illicit affair. All I remember was my father putting me to bed. I hadn't seen him in weeks because I was with my grandparents. Just as I fell asleep, in a bedroom I had never been in before, I heard the shot. Helen was the one who called the ambulance. The medics fought to pry her away from the dead man. The Ross family adopted her and helped her through the trauma. Frank's parents were killed in a robbery. He was in preschool at the time. He was too young to understand the two fighting. They always made up for it. It took a decade for him to come to terms with their death. Two people he was convinced loved each other completely, killed in a senseless act of violence. As their stories were told over the weeks of counseling, some bawled their eyes out, others begging forgiveness for whatever crime they'd committed, demanding from one god or another why they were picked out for this exercise in agony. All through the group hugs and confessions, tear-soaked stories and fits of outrage, they grew closer as a group. Derek was a new face, a stranger, and sat in stoic silence. He called it boredom. Of them all, Derek was the only one who watched his parents die. They never found who killed them. My mother said, "I love you," her last dying words. Who knows? Maybe she said that to my father. Maybe I imagined it. Derek tapped the side of the empty bowl with his spoon. Dad got the gun, point blank, right in the forehead, fast and painless, even though he had already been stabbed. Mother got the knife. That was slow. For a moment, Derek stopped and stared at the floor. It was the only moment it seemed his confession had any effect on him. That is a lie. There was no gun. The old lies sounded worse than the murder as he listened to the old embellishments come out of his mouth. To hear her beg for my life as the killer bled her out. He left the moment incomplete. I think it was revenge, Derek mused to the group during one late-night session. Mother did something to someone that made them kill her, maybe. Dad was just in the way. Get him out of the way. Conspiracy, maybe. I was too young to know. Derek shrugged as he scooped another lump of soggy donut into his mouth. He shocked everyone in the room with his dry eyes. You miss them? Compared to what? Frank coughed. Dude, that's cold. Well? I don't have any memories of being pushed on a swing or getting a huge birthday cake or being cuddled at night after a nightmare. Derek set the bowl on the floor next to his old shoes. Summer walks in the park, swimming at the local pool, picnics and summer movies. What memories do I have to compare anything to? The last school? The last counselor checking their email while I told my life story? James hissed. Dude, I never got that either. Derek picked at his pant leg. What would you like me to say? Would you want me to blubber and piss myself? Say at least that you miss them, Alice said, wiping under her eye. Easy for you to say. Was it a year ago? 2 years ago? You got your pony or dolly or all that stuff? It's just stuff. It's stuff attached to two people who made the stuff appear. You attach things to people. The toy car Justin keeps talking about. The dollhouse you keep talking about. Lawrence is the only one who could understand this because he was a toddler. But he's fixated on the dream of what his parents would have been, rather than what they were. I'm not. I grew out of that fantasy. After all the time that's passed, it's easy. I'm the oldest kid here and have been without my parents the longest. Plenty of time to face the cold reality and grow out of the fantasy. Derek scratched behind his ear with a spoon. At least the tears part. Still, dude, Frank coughed again. That's cold.